Morena, councillors, thank you for your attendance today and your punctuality. Right.
Kia ora, Chair. Whakatakato ki te uru, whakatakato ki te tonga. Kia makina kina ki uta, kia mataratara ki tai, I he aki ana te arakura, I toi, hi huka, I hohu, te he mariwa. E kapo I te whetu, e kapo I te marama, e kapo I tata, ko taku raukiro kei rire. A ko te homua, ko te homuri, ko te hau tama wahine, ko te hau tama tānei. Tu mai rā te toka tānei nui araki, tuturu mau kia whakamawa ka tīna, aumi e hui e. Pai anō ka maumaharatia mō tō whānau whanaunga o Claire Marie Jacobs Williams. Nō reira, e rakatira whaia, e haere atu rā ki te pāta whakawairua, e takoto. Takoto I rangi Māori I rungi tō waka, hoi atu tō waka ko tō tārai, haere, e haere atu rā. E te rakatira whaia, mō tō rangatira whaia o Naitu Ahuriri. Mō tō kai whakahaere o Naitu Ahuriri, te runanga o Naitahu, Māngai o Naitu Ahuriri, o te kai whakahaere o te committee taio, o reira e whaia, haere atu rā. Mō tō rangatira whaia o te whānau o Jacobs, mō te whānau o Mongamanu no Kaikoura, and o reira e haere atu rā. I just wanted to acknowledge the passing of Claire Williams. Her whānau actually came from, they are Naitu Ahuriri, but Ngāti Kuri as well, coming from Mongamanu, north of Kaikoura. They came down, I remember her mum and dad well. I went to school actually with Claire's brother Jimmy, and so they all were brought up at Kaipoi pretty much. They were part of Tuihiwi also. I actually succeeded Claire as the Te Runanga o Naitahu representative actually for Tuahuriri, and also she was my chair when I was actually on Te Runanga for Naituahuriri. There was a lot of things actually that Claire did, particularly around the for Tuahuriri and also around the Taio as well. One of the big things actually was about Naitohu farms coming into Naituahuriri Takiwa. That was a big one. So she was quite instrumental. She had a very, very able lieutenant as well, her sister-in-law, Joan Bergman, Joan Williams. And when you look at that Williams whānau, they are also, their mother was a Karakiana. So, you know, very well thought of, mana, all of that. So I know looking at the overview of what Claire actually, her input into Canterbury Regional Council, was huge. And thank you, Claire, here sending out that message. So you've all got a pretty good idea of you know what her work was, particularly within Canterbury Regional Council. O reira, Claire, haere atu rā. Apiti hono tātai hono rātou ki tonga mate ki a rātou. Apiti hono tātai hono tātou ki tonga ora ki a tātou. Let the dead be the dead and the living be the living.
Yeah, kia ora, Councillor Korako. It's my intention to have an 8.5 and other in general business, and the opportunity for others to speak to Claire about Claire and their involvement with her, and we'll use that opportunity to do that then. So If you don't mind, we'll just move our way through the agenda till we get to 8.5. 8.5 will be before we go into PX, and then we'll have a 5-minute break after that, and come back to go into public excluded. So I've had apologies from Councillor McKenzie, Councillor Easton, Councillor Ward. Are we aware of anybody else that's an apology? We're not. And John's online. Can you hear us all right, John?
All good, thank you.
Thank you. Extraordinary urgent business. I just said that we will put 8.5 in there. Obviously, we were aware of Claire's passing when this agenda went out, so we'll do that at 8.5. There's no public deputations or petitions, and there are no notices of motion. So if we can move to 7.1, we'll put that recommendation up there. And really, this is just to look at those minutes in terms of their accuracy, and if there's any corrections or wording that they need to be amended by. Right. Councillor's pretty happy, so can I have a mover for that, please? Thanks, Greg. Councillor Burns, seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Edge. So, any discussion? If there's no discussion, then the motion's there. Moved by Councillor Burns, seconded by Councillor Edge. All those in favour, please say aye. And all those against, that is carried. 8.1. And Andrew, I see you're sitting down there. Do you want to bring this to us, or do you want Jess to do it, or which is the just the resolution status report? And Jess can do that if that's all right. Okay. All right, Jess. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the purpose of this report on the agenda, it's a standing agenda item, is to bring to the committee the resolution status report. You'll note the attachment, the resolutions from the previous committee meetings are all completed. Happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, so is anything there that needs inquiry on with Jessie? Councillor Southworth.
Yeah, just we are now coming to cold, starting to feel cold. So is there any, you've got any information how the air quality heating program? We know we did a bit of comms around this at this time of year, so that was talked to last meeting, but is that now in full flow? How's that going?
Mr. Chair, yeah, I don't have an update, sorry, at this point in time, but I can bring something back through to the committee at the next meeting if that would be helpful. My understanding is the winter work program is underway, and we have seen a couple of exceedances in certain places, but that's to be expected as we go through the winter program. There will be some further discussion on the air quality program as we go through the LTP discussions as well. So something to just hold that thought in that respect about how we reshape the program going forward. So, but we can certainly bring something back to the next committee meeting. I don't have something in front of me at this point in time, though. So,
I think that's a good point, Councillor Southworth, that we do usually about this time of year have an update on that and the work that's going on in those areas. So thanks, Jess, for doing that, and I'll follow that up also. Anything else? Okay, got a mover for this, please. Thank you, Councillor Swiggs, seconded by Councillor Southworth. Any further discussion? There'll be no further discussion. Put that to you. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, say no. That's carried. So thank you. Moving on to 8.5. Is it 8.2? 8.2. 8.2 is the portfolio work program update, including public transport performance. And Jeremy, good to see you at the table. Do you want to introduce us, Jess, and then we can use Jeremy if we need him?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this paper is to bring through the portfolio work program update on the portfolio, including the public transport, integrated transport and urban development, and air quality programs. As Peter just said, Jeremy's at the table here to answer any questions around the public transport work program. Unfortunately, Stuart's away sick today. He is online, but I think won't be able to speak to the paper, unfortunately. But yeah, there's a number of notable achievements outlined in the paper. I'll take those as read. This is a in between quarters update, so we'll bring through the Q4 update to the next committee meeting. So this is really about some of those key achievements. One thing I would add to paragraph 14 of the paper is the consultation on the Greater Christchurch spatial plan is due to start next week on Monday, 19th of June. So just to update you on that. So look for that in the media. There'll be a big public process around that as well. So please promote that in your networks. But happy to take any questions, Mr. Chair.
We'll go to Jeremy, who's a PT. Jeremy.
Kia ora koutou. Look, a couple of, again, taken as read, as you all know, with lots of work on this space, but a couple of notable achievements this report. So 0.8 missed trips, as you can see, we're at 0.02% missed trips for the month of May. We are returning the orbiter to normal services on the 3rd of July. So you'll have seen that. So that's a big deal for us. As I remember presenting in February-ish this year, in terms of the challenges that we're facing in the space and the work that we're doing to overcome it. And so we are there at this point in time. Who knows what other macroeconomic conditions might hit the country over the next year or so, but that's outside of our control. But we're in a good place. If you compare ourselves to Auckland and Wellington, they are still missing trips. They are having conversations at their council table around performance and not around growth. And it's, you see we're talking about Route 7, or we're doing some work on Route 7. So we're in as good a space as we can be. We've worked very, very hard as a team. Our operators work very, very hard to achieve this outcome. So there's been a lot of work to go on to achieve that. And the other thing that's 0.7 of importance, again, working very, very hard on this. This is not a simple project or process to be ready for fare changes on the 1st of July at late minute from central government without an understanding of the processes and systems and training and customer change that needs to go to make that happen. So on the 1st of July, we will be rolling out the ECAN fare trial at the same time as Community Services Connect and the changes to the under 25 that was announced in the budget. We won't be rolling out the changes to under 13 fares because we don't have enough hours in the day, and our suppliers don't have enough hours in a day to do that in a way that is well considered and means that it will be easily consumable from our customers' perspective. So I'm pretty happy with that. And just to be clear, the concessions are based on MetroCard use. These concessions around the Community Services Card Connect concessions and the other 25, but the fare changes are the fare trial changes are across our network for different fares, but for cash changes and card changes. And I mean, you can see, I think, as I said, actually, I'll be briefing you tomorrow on SPTF, so we'll give you an update on that. And we've got a session later on today as well.
I was just interested, your last comment around, so you're talking about the 327 million within the budget for free transport under 13s and also half price under 25. Interesting. So, talking about the rollout of that. So we're pretty much in the loop on that now. I mean, that's starting. I was just interested this morning. I heard a news report this morning that there are councils actually further north that actually are going to find it actually impossible to implement. Got any comment around that?
There's a lot of councils, but I know they're all in. Wellington's one. So there's a bit of detail here, but there's 4 different ticketing systems, New Zealand. And so the key constraint is the ticketing, as well as ours in the day, it's the existing ticketing systems and what they're able to do. So we're on a different ticketing system to Greater Wellington, who are on a different ticketing systems to Auckland Transport, and then the rest of the councils are on another ticketing system. So each of the councils, a great idea and it's a great outcome, and we want to deploy this in a measured way so that there is no failure demand from a customer's perspective. So we need to get the systems and processes working well, which includes the ticketing systems, as well as how we're going to, is it going to be a trust-based model that you're under 13, or is it going to be a register of people that are under 13? So it's quite a complex process to deliver it. So each of the councils are at different spaces on that. And if you're talking about Wellington, I know they're working hard on it, and they don't have a date yet.
So what you're saying is that our ticketing system actually will be able to handle, because I know the issues are around how do you actually, look at, how do you, 13-year-olds, how do you actually monitor that? And then, under 25s. But we've got a ticket system that could possibly do that. Is that what? Well,
I think possibly is the word. We've engaged early stage engagement with our supplier, but we're not far enough along to. We own the boxes, but it's the technology and the changes to it are provided by our supplier.
So that I guess the issue here is that the hardest bit on this is 13s, and the approach taken is that we're not putting that on bus drivers. Bus drivers got enough to do to drive bus, so we're not going to put it on those. And I think there's an endorsement from Whakatahi and also from central government. Although we've lost our minister, we were going to go and see our minister, and we've lost him. So to put our proposal on the table to them, but I think there's reasonable support for what's that's going. So Councillor Swiggs and then Councillor Southworth.
Thanks for the report. I was just going to pick on, I've got two questions to ask. I was just going to pick on, dare I say, my text is a little bit small. Number 11 on page 23, which is the Route 7, the work there. It's nice to see that it's been, that we're working through that. I've recently just had and picking on the second or the third sentence there, they expressed the desire to review the scope of the service. I've just received further correspondence from the community around the rate of growth that's going out there in another subdivision that's just gone into that Hallsville area, and they're saying that it's these places don't necessarily have car parks, and they're trying to target people not to get in cars, but it's a 40-minute walk to the nearest bus stop for one of these new subdivisions out in the Hallsville area. So what is and so they've gone to Metro, and Metro's provided an unhelpful response to the community. It's gone to the council and the community board, and it's now come to me. And I'm just wondering what the actual process is and where can we go to get in these areas that are sort of experiencing that exponential outward growth to actually have better services.
I can. What I can tell you is there is a process. I'm standing in for Stu here, and I'm full time at the moment on national ticketing. So which I'll be talking to you. Yeah, yes. So look. So I think we're best to take that question offline because we have a process of engagement and it's complex. So why don't we? We'll get the team to provide an answer to you offline.
I think I would have been remiss not to ask it. So I've just got one for you.
A lot of interest in what you're saying. There's a fierce paper coming to council next week. I think that's the point that Giles was trying to make. Stuart, in terms of this issue, do you want to speak on this issue to reply to Councillor Swiggs?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Council basically have control over the level of service uplift that we provide to our community, and that control is determined through budgeting processes, annual plans and long-term plans. So staff will be bringing information to council in a briefing this week to talk about Route 7, and then in a decision process in July to determine the scope of that Route 7 review, and that will have fiscal implications for council to consider.
Stuart, no more from you. Don't sound like you're up to it. Okay.
I do have two questions, and there was one other sorry, Giles is going to say something, I believe.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Stuart said. Absolutely correct, but obviously that's in the context of the business case that has already been agreed with Whakamutunga and the Greater Christchurch Partnership in terms of PT Futures. As Stuart says, we'll bring that information so that council understands the context and that any future decisions can be made within that context of the PT Futures business case, service uplifts, budgets, rates, etc.
Okay, excuse me.
Thank you. Councillor Sweeks, are you still inquiring?
Last time I looked, it was on. And it's just around, have we got any update around the, now that we've sort of got the route 28, I think is going to start. Have we got any update around the potential for the 125 to stay over or to remain in the airport terminal, the stop remaining in the airport terminal over summer to gauge the level of what's the word I'm looking for here? How many people are using it?
So look, I think we'll take that offline. I could ask Cindy's enough question to ask our team and get back to you.
Great reply, Jeremy. Thank you. Councillor Sweeks, are you probably not happy, but that's good. It's really good. So Councillor Southworth and Councillor Pauline.
Yes, first just to say it is really great to have this report with so many fantastic things that are finally all coming into place. So it's brilliant. And I know that you guys have worked really, really hard to make that happen. In terms of the 13s and under, it is like families are really struggling. Like, you know, it's a big cost, but I acknowledging that it's predominantly primary school children. There's perhaps less travel by bus amongst primary school children than the high schoolers. But I'm just wondering, do we have a sense of how long it might be until we can do that zero fare? And I'm just, because I know as well, under fives are free. So that part, that's on a trust basis, I'm thinking. And so the problem is, when we have an age, we can set an age for a change in fare, but is it that we've literally got one age we can put in, and that's either a concession or not on that, and we can't put in a second age for a second? Is that the complexity here?
That's one of the complexities. Yeah. So there's a few. I just don't think council are going to want me to get into the detail of all the complexities, and there's a few complexities that we just need to work through. So we can't. I don't want to set a date that is. We just have no way of knowing if we're going to make that date. But we are investigating it with intensity, should I say? Yeah, we've engaged with our ticketing provider on that. We need to follow through that process, and we will inform council how that goes. Obviously, that process.
And I guess the high level point on this is with the national ticketing system on its way, the inquiry into this and spending money on this to get this 100% right is, you just ask yourself whether that's worth doing the kick rate.
Look, actually, Vicky's asked my question, but I just wanted to congratulate the staff on, you know, getting to the point of the fare review, getting it in place. 1st July is going to be awesome, and you know, really just acknowledge the leadership that this council's played in pushing the things around fares, and that the government's come to the party. It's awesome. So just acknowledging that. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig and Giles. Your hand was up for a wee while.
Yeah, just want to add for councillor to read. We're actively working with MOT and Whakamutunga on the implementation of the announcements by government. There's a lot of work and a lot of nuance to be worked through. We do have a paper coming next week, and we'll provide a full update in terms of where we are. Important that it's done in the context of, as you've rightly identified, implementing the agreed fare trial for Canterbury from the 1st of July, and in the context of over the next 12-15 months being the first region to implement the new ticketing solution across Canterbury. So yeah.
Thanks, Giles. And just from a councillor's viewpoint, we have written to the minister to see if we could get access to him to talk about what we were going to do. In terms of that, we're a wee bit hybridy around the government announcement and what's possible here, and that hasn't emerged. But I'll be keeping in contact also with Whakamutunga, just letting them know where we're at. So I think we're in a pretty safe space here, and you know, and the approach that we're taking. Is there any further comment? No further comment. You can put that resolution or recommendation up. So it is that Transport, Urban Development, and Air Quality Committee received a work program report updates to work programs since the April 2023 committee meeting. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Jess. Got a mover for that, please. Councillor Mihi, and seconded by Councillor Southwood. Is there any further discussion on that? There's no further discussion on that. I'll put that motion to you. Moved by Councillor Mihi, seconded by Councillor Southwood. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, please say no. That's carried. So thank you for that. We're moving to 8.3, which is the GPS, the government policy statement on land transport, and that's discussion will be introduced by Jess.
Yes. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just like to invite Luke Carey and Tammy Phillips up to the table, who are going to be leading our GPS submission. We're just waiting for the GPS to come out, which Luke can explain. But this, the purpose of this paper is to seek delegation to the chair in terms of our making a submission. Provided we don't have an opportunity to bring it through to a committee or council meeting, but I'll let Luke and Tammy take you through the paper, just explaining a little bit more about the GPS and the timings and things, and we'll work through that. So over to you, Luke. Thanks.
Okay. Kia ora, Mr. Chief. Kia ora, councillors. Yeah, I think Jesse's really outlined the purpose of the paper. It's fairly straightforward, seeking delegation to the chair to approve a submission on the draft GPS on behalf of this council. We have been asked to progress two submissions, one from a joint Canterbury Mayoral Forum and Regional Transport Committee submission on the GPS, and one on behalf of this council, which would be progressing at the same time. And we're expecting only a 4-week engagement period from the central government on this piece. So it is a very constrained time frame. Essentially, this just puts in place a backstop. Our preferred approach is to take it to a full council meeting and have it debated in a public forum. And hopefully we get the opportunity to do that. And this is in place in case we're not able to. I'll take the paper as read. It just outlines what the GPS does and what it does not do, and a little bit on our proposed process, but just noting that this was originally intended to be released at the end of March, beginning of April, and it's been pushed back at least a couple of times at this point in time. So there is one further opportunity for Cabinet approval, I believe on the 21st of June, and if it does not obtain approval at that meeting, then we're not sure whether it will happen this side of the election. So there's a number of ministers that need to sign off on it too. So it's working through its process, not and not through lack of effort on behalf of Ministry of Transport staff either, trying to get through. So we're working on the 21st of June and hopefully receiving it within a few working days of that date. And we'll just be waiting until it lands. And
thank you, Luke and Tammy, for this. Look, I mean, you're in a bit of a difficult situation because turnaround time, even if it's 21 June, is not very long. Look, I think we'll talk to this paper. Then I think the general discussion after you've left the table, we can talk about what risks we might have in front of us with this. So, has anybody got any questions of Luke or Tim? Thanks. Look, good, Luke.
So basically, what this is a fast track process, and so in having that process, I mean, this might be asking how long a piece of string is, but what do you think is the percentage of success to get it through? Because if it doesn't happen, then it's going to be way in the distance, then, isn't it? After the election, post-election.
I mean, I think there's a very strong imperative for government to want to get it through this side of the election. Yeah, I can't comment on what's happening at the cabinet level because I don't have visibility of that. So yeah, I couldn't say. Yeah.
I think what we need to do is just to, I agree the process that you've laid out there is pretty straightforward. It is really constrained in terms of time frames, and my hope is that the 21st is that it does get done on the 21st because it simplifies our life a little. All right, then put that recommendation up, please. Thanks, guys. You can step back. So that's the agenda item 8.3, those 3 points there. Looking for a mover for those. Thank you, Councillor Edge, and a seconder, Councillor Mackay. Thank you for that. Now with the discussion on that, I think my view on this is that we're in risk territory here with this. Doesn't matter which way it goes, and the risk is, and I guess the risk is that if it doesn't go ahead, then this is that's one point. The other risk about this is that if it does go ahead and we have let's say we have a central government change, then it is unlikely, and there is a change of governors, then it's unlikely that this would flow through. We've seen that last time when we went from national-led government to an Ardern-led government, a coalition government, that there was a pretty big shift away from roads, essentially roads of national significance, to other issues that were seen as important that the National Land Transport Fund. And we've seen through the last 6 years that there is a change also in emphasis, and we've got now Coastal Shipment Kiwi Rail coming out, National Land Transport Fund, and it being constrained in terms of electric cars and those sorts of things, not putting money back in. And every time you get an electric car, there's no kilometre charge against it. Of course, they're using energy from another sector, so there's no taxing going in there. So we've got constrained National Land Transport Fund also. So there's a whole lot of stuff in our future, even if we do get this across the line, that we're going to have to consider. And of course, the National Land Transport Fund funds the Regional Land Transport Fund. And we know how much angst there is amongst the TAs on this. And we know how much advice Whakamutunga has given to us in terms of, I guess, not limits, but other opportunities for money coming out of that fund. So that we're due for a big discussion of transport and how it's funded. So, yeah.
So was there any approach made to the shadow transport guy, Simeon Brown, as to where they would sit, and what was his?
I think we had a hui here with Simeon Brown and Matt Ducey. That was Nicola Gregg here, not sure, and that fellow from the North Island who's the sort of associate finance maybe. Scott Simpson. Jess, you were there, and we did discuss this, but was more about trying to align what we're doing in terms of the thinking that we have in Canterbury across a range of transport issues and funding issues, with the noises that we were hearing coming our way out of that sort of shadow caucus, if you like. And we had a really good engagement with them. One of the issues that we did have, and one of the issues that we did table was public transport, because there was some noise coming out about, no, we're not electing on public transport. And we were saying that, in terms of the highly developed model that we have here and the evolution of things that we're trying to do, then it's one of those things that we think that people need to pay more attention to. Now, whether we've got any traction with that or not, I don't know. But we did have that opportunity, and we have asked them to re-engage with us if they need to. I think they've got enough on their plate at the moment to talk about, but that is a concern that we have for this area. Yes, you want to add?
To add to the conversation, we have had the indicators around where the GPS might go, and that's what's being discussed across the different ministers at the moment. But certainly the climate response and what we've seen up in the North Island with Cyclone Gabrielle and the response to funding and the direction that needs to be provided in an amended GPS. So we do have an indication of where things are likely to go, and I think that's just the balance across the different political spectrums around how far we go in different directions. So I think that's something that we'll certainly be bringing back to council once it lands, hopefully on the 21st of June, and briefing council around what that means and how that relates to our regional land transport plan and all the work that we do in Greater Christchurch, where the funding buckets are, and how we benefit in terms of the work we're doing here in Canterbury and in the South Island as well. So yeah, we'll bring council through a briefing on the GPS to inform a submission that we end up drafting as well.
Right.
Thanks, Jesse. Yes, I suppose the last government budget gave a bit of an indication of what they were concerned about in terms of expenditure. So it's those climate resilience things and the national infrastructure, and how do they secure the future of vulnerable infrastructure across New Zealand. And in Canterbury, we know that in the major river storms that we've had recently, that infrastructure is vulnerable if there's another one. So those issues, hopefully that will continue. And emissions reduction is also seems to be high on the agenda, and safety, road safety sort of directions too. But yeah, I personally, I suspect government's probably going to be just moving forward on some of the directions they've already given us.
I guess the significant things is Gabrielle, and how Gabrielle is, it's pretty an apolitical sort of event, and the information that's coming back out from Whakatahi and also the ministry is about the fact that some of the things that we're doing and some of the things that we've done in the past are maybe not possible, and we need to make sure that we have resilient highways, bridges and crossings and all those sorts of things, and that will be there'll be a hierarchy of demands there. We've already had that discussion and I see you shake your head. You can have a crack at this in a minute, actually, if you shake it that much, Councillor Swiggs. But we've already started that discussion with our mayors, not to any great extent, but access to the top end of the Arari River. When you put that into significance on Mackenzie District Council, is that more important than fixing up the Holden Road? So they're going to have to start thinking about that. They're money short, and so this whole discussion that we're having, they've got just Mackenzie as an example, they've got roads there that they haven't fixed and probably won't get to fix. Councillor Sweets.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I mean, your comment around Cyclone Gabrielle being not political, the response is political, and how that is funded is political, and the government have made a decision not to create an income stream to fund that, which is causing significant income or significant funding challenges around the rest of the country and for a number of other sectors. So the response is political, and we are going to be seeing the outcomes of those political decisions, and we're seeing it through this, and we're seeing it through the roads and everything that you were just talking about, especially in that river resilience stuff. So I mean, when it comes to these decisions, we do need to be sort of advocating and saying, we do need to be seeing more funding on the business as usual stuff, and especially in that resilience space, because resilience isn't just in our rivers, it's also in our land transport, it's in our whole way we work. If our economy isn't resilient because our roads aren't resilient, then we've got problems. So it is a political decision.
Yeah, may I've been misquoted out of this chamber before, Councillor Sweets, and shall I just make my point clear to you, is that it should not be a political decision. Minister McAnulty has put his civil defence bill as a non-political bill. Can we just finish? Let me just finish this. To the select committee to say that the process through the select committee should then shape it. And as you would know, Councillor Karakia, select committees are made up of all parties. Now, if there's something wrong with that, then I can't pick it actually from where I'm sitting. But anyway, let's move on from that because we could be here for a while talking about. Yeah, no, go on. Go on. This is the opportunity to get your views recorded, Councillor Karakia.
I feel a bit like the Newcastle song, never let a chance go by.
What have I started?
Yeah, certainly what have you started, Councillor Swiggs. What I would say is, in the perfect world, Chair Scott, I completely agree with you. But as a cynic, when it comes to this, I would suggest to you that politics is what it's all about. So, cool.
I wouldn't have picked you as a cynic. Anyway, let's move to the recommendation that we have here in front of us. That's been moved by Councillor Edge and seconded by Councillor Mackay. So all those in favour, please say aye. All those against, it's carried. And can I just say, look, hopefully the 21st gets met and you can get on with your work, Tammy and Luke. So thank you for that. So the next bit, we can have a bit of discussion about this next bit too, because that's the Chair's report. And we're going to talk about the issues in the Chair's report. And this section here is really open for councillors to make comment on these things, and the issues that I've included in there are issues that we may want to you may want to comment on it. There'll be no staff involved in this process, so this is a process that we will start that discussion. We don't need to put the recommendation up until the end, and it's just an acceptance anyway, or receive the report. The two issues in there are the public transport fares assistance package that we're putting in there, and just an explanation, I guess, that Jeremy's already provided about the process that we're going through to do that, and pushing on without being able to get 100% sign off on our hybrid model, if you like, to central government. But we are pretty sure that we'll get support on that. And in fact, saves the government some money. The thing that I wanted to talk to the government about, and I said to Minister Wood when he was the minister, look, this is going to save you some money, but we'd really like to be able to collect that also, the savings, and use it. And one of the things that we did talk about, that Councillor Swiggs and I talked about in Timaru yesterday, was My Way, and the absolute joy that council has having My Way, but the absolute cost to them, I guess, in terms of going forward. And that's something that they need to have a discussion about, because it is like more of a consumptive model than a public transport opportunity. It's a bespoke opportunity, which they like, but it does cost more. It does cost their ratepayers more. My view on that is, like, if you want a bespoke solution to public transport, which gives you all the things that you need out of a public transport system, then that's up to you. That's up to your council to do that, as long as we can get that Whakatahi funding also into that. But it also does cost Whakatahi more, and I guess that's an issue for Whakatahi. We're still on a trials basis down there, which we need to try and alleviate that, but I don't think you're going to get that done anytime soon, before the end of the year, but we need to concentrate on that going forward. The problem that we also have with that, and I think also for public transport going forward, and I'm down a bit of a rabbit hole here, but I'll keep going, see if we get to, is the fact that the Petitions model, which was hopefully going to go before the House, also give us the opportunity how we looked at this differently. That was the opportunity. And if you look at what's happening in Timaru, that's funded through the Petitions model. So the flexibility around what we can and can't do there is limited. When we went to Jeremy's gone, but Jeremy and I and a couple of councillors from Timaru District Council went to New South Wales and had a look at their on-demand stuff, and they had cars running around. They had cars as part of that. So, rather than have a $200,000 van or a $150,000 van or whatever they're worth, those things to outfit, you could have a car. Because a lot of the times when you see them, they've only got one or two people in them anyway. So, that's an opportunity for communities to get involved in those things under the public transport funding model. So I was hopeful that would have got through the House, but I think Councillor Swiggs, you said they've got 14 days left, 14 sitting days.
19.
We're running out of to get some of the stuff daylighted, but that's public transport fares assistance. I think we've done a really good job on that, and Councillor Southworth and other councillors before her, who put a lot of effort into this, has got us to a space that we're reasonably comfortable with. Hopefully the buses too, which they seem to be doing, which is good. So that's that, unless anyone else has got a comment on that. Councillor Southwood, do you want to comment on that?
Well, fair trials, yeah, fab to see it, and that it's, you know, the government, bless them, putting in these extra half price fares and so on was a little bit of took us off course for a short while, but it really looks like we managed to make an opportunity from that, and it's helped put us financially sort of on track as well. So that's really great to see. Just in response to the My Way conversation, you know, I really feel like we just need to be really clear with ratepayers what the costs are, and if the service is good enough, people are happy to pay. Like that's the, you know, I remember the submissions on My Way for the long-term plan, and we had 19 positives for every 1 negative. You know, that's, I mean, I haven't seen that in anything else that we do. So, and ultimately cars cost a lot. If you can lose the need to run that extra car, we're an intensely car heavy city. You know, the My Way model costs more, but it gives people the opportunity to lose all the costs that go with running a car and having it sat on the street or your drive. You know, I think actually the right message and the right model and, you know, discussions, we can make that actually pay for people. It can, you know, it can actually be cost beneficial to the families as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I see you reappeared, Jeremy, so you're probably interested in our discussion, but we talked about the bespoke nature of My Way in Timaru. You don't need to comment on this because that is a no staff issue, but the fact that we need to probably get some resolution around our trial, what that looks like. So that's something that we need to put on your paper. Something that we probably also need to consider, but I know you've got enough to consider at the moment, but it is, you know, if we got the Piton model did change, what's the opportunity for flexibility, especially inbuilt stuff within the areas that we know that need access. And then if the Piton model did change, what's the opportunity then to have more of a bespoke vehicle rather than saying, oh, this is what a bus is and this is what a bus looks like. And you know what we saw in New South Wales where they're using small vans and cars and things like that. So that was the basis of the conversation.
We've got a briefing tomorrow on the SPTF changes, and it talks about on demand.
Moving on to cruise ships, we've had a reasonable good response to that. I think Tracy has replied to us actually, Councillor Southworth, and we certainly have had replies from LPC and Christchurch, New Zealand, and also the Cruise Ship Association. We've had a bit of criticism, which is good, because that means that people have actually read what we're trying to do. Whether they've misinterpreted that or not, I don't know, but we've had people say to us, well, you know, we were looking for an opportunity to talk to you about this and we have some solutions. So, and we've elicited that, and we've got some really good, I don't know if you, depends where you're sitting, good press on that. I think we've got an issue with the city in terms of their understanding of what we're trying to do here. You know, the feedback that I'm getting anecdotally is, why are you against cruise ships? And I'm saying, well, we're not against cruise ships at all. We love them. We think they're great. I'll take a cruise myself. You know, we don't do that. But the impost on your ratepayers, that's what I've said to City, the impost on your ratepayers and our ratepayers is unacceptable when we can't provide a service that between the cruise ships and ourselves and other people involved in that. So that conversation's good. What we will do is we'll circle back next week, at the end of next week, just saying to people, look, we're going to meet on the 10th. Are you interested in coming? And maybe put some smaller agenda out, which we can do it one of two ways. We're going to have a confrontational agenda or a non-confrontational one. I think the communication next week needs to be talking about the fact that we're seeking resolution to this. Because when we're saying that, then people were expecting something to come out of that. Now, good, bad, or ugly, something comes out of that, then there's another opportunity for the likes of councillors to be involved in that. Because I think this is where it sits. It sits more with Paul and Vicky and the Littleton community and the impost on them than it does and other people that want to get involved.
Yep. Just a point of clarification. So who are we engaging with at council? Is it actual council or is it the agency? Is it Christchurch, New Zealand?
Initially, we we wrote to three ministers, which is the Minister of Tourism, the Minister of Economic Development, and the Minister of Transport. And we said that we have an issue. And just if I can back up that a bit, we had that discussion at council, and staff brought the cruise ship thing to us. And I basically said to them, look, we need to take that on board because of the work that Paul was doing, Councillor Deche was doing, and Councillor Southworth were doing with that community over there, who were concerned that not enough was getting done, if you like, and we're running out of time, and we've got 20% increase. So what we did was what I did was I said, look, I'll write to the ministers and say to them, look, this is the issue, essentially, and we also wrote to all the local politicians in that first letter, and then we wrote to the people that are involved in that process. It was a Little Import Company, New Zealand Cruise Ship Association, Christchurch, New Zealand, Christchurch City Council, pretty sure, and Whakamutunga, yeah.
All that. It was just that your comment about this Christchurch City Council actually asking you why you didn't like.
That was more individual people saying to me, rather than that isn't a council response, it's a councillor's response. Individual people have been saying that to me. Well, that may be, but I mean, I think that's also an opportunity for them to be involved in this.
Just for clarification too, and you said just before, we love cruise ships. Who are you speaking on behalf of, yourself or all of us? When you state that, just for clarity, because I'm not a fan of cruise ships.
Note that, Genevieve, but the community, I guess, the economic opportunity out of cruise ships is the thing I was pointing to. Yeah, Councillor Deche.
Yeah, last week when your press release went out, I also took that and put it out on social media and got quite a good bit of chatter and response, specifically to the Littleton groups, the Heathcote groups, the Apawa groups. And I'm sure that some of the LPC and Christchurch City councillors and that sort of thing would have seen it. I'm sure it would have been pointed out. So poking the nest a little bit there to get some, action, to get them to pay some attention. My worry from the very beginning with a lot of this, when the cruise ships returned and the 28 buses were affected, was that the community, specifically in Littleton, was going to be quite upset. They were. My ongoing worry is that it's going to get worse. And as we've seen with initiatives with Christchurch City Council to go to the length of putting out videos about anti-bullying and to keep your cool and that sort of thing, that things in these times can boil over. And with a cruise ship season coming up that's supposed to be bigger than last year, that's still my ongoing concern. So hopefully we get some responses back from those organizations to take more responsibility and front up for that side of things, but we'll see.
I just like to thank you for bringing this to a higher level. So Councillor Deche and I were sort of advocated on behalf of our community through the first season, and staff responded, I think, admirably in what was really quite a messy situation and very much already on a heavy workload, had to slot it in, which is never ideal. And so I have confidence that we do actually have the potential to work reasonably smoothly in the next season if we have to take this on. And that's what came to our council in the last council meeting. The problem is, of course, it's got quite a cost associated with it, and the disappointment in that is it's the whole of Christchurch will have to be picking that up in their rates, and we already know we have a heap of other communities that also need improvements in public transport, who that work has to be done, that cost has to go in, that has a knock on in terms of other parts of Christchurch. So I'm really hopeful that this drive now will actually find that there is a solution that the cruise liners or Lyttelton Port Company and Christchurch NZ can resolve, and we will get there. But it's great that we do have what looks like a backup plan should it come to that, and we really can't have Lyttelton community members unable to use public transport or impacted where they're waiting an hour or more to catch a bus. So but thank you for bringing it to this level. Thanks, Peter.
No, that's great. Look, I think we had a bit of criticism on this, well, not we, but the organisation had a bit of criticism on this in terms of the cost that we put in that paper. And the cost we put in that paper was 500,000. Then if Whakamutunga didn't want to come to the party on this, in terms of extra services, that would be $1 million. Christchurch is on pushback pretty hard on that, said, oh, you know, you're not right. But we sent that the workings of that to them. And I think, like, if we're going to have that conversation with Christchurch New Zealand, they must not turn up, because that's not the conversation that we want to have with them. We want to have a conversation that we've encompassed in having the appropriate and more equitable solution to the current state that we have, and that's for Christchurch. If Christchurch New Zealand are pushing at us and saying, "Hey, you're nuts, that doesn't cost that much," then well, you do the bus. This is our job. We take it pretty seriously. We've been asked to do this, and Mihi, I think in response to what you've said, I mean, that's what you need me to be doing. Actually, I don't need any bouquets for this because it's part of what I should be doing. Anyway, won't push on Craig.
Just on that last point, Peter, is there any early indications from Whakamutunga about their support for this?
I won't speak on behalf of Whakamutunga, but I would think that the political nature of this, and that's why we wrote to the minister, is the fact that this is a public transport service which is getting higher demand than we can service. We would expect them to come to the party with at least with their share, and then what can we do with the rest of it? So yeah, Joe.
Have we moved on from the cruise ship issue?
Yeah, we want to. This is more like this is about the cruise ship issue. If you've got another issue to raise, is it about public transport per se?
It's around the regional transport committee.
That's not an issue that.
The purpose of this paper is to raise matters of current interest to the air quality, transport, and urban development portfolio. I was just wondering if we could. Yeah, just wondering, because I'm aware we get the minutes for the regional transport committee, usually to our council meeting, but I thought it might be a good place for Grant or yourself to just update councillors on what's happening at the regional transport committee level.
No, that's a good point. Look, I think we should possibly do that. We've done it in the past. I think we've had a RTC update here, or certainly at a council meeting. We tend to be operating a wee bit differently, but that's a good point. So thanks for that. All right. The recommendation is there. Is someone would like to move that, please? Yeah, thank you, Craig, and thank you, Dion. No further discussion on that. So all those in favour, please say aye. All those against, and that is carried. Now I'll put a general business item in next before we go into public excluded, which I want to use as an opportunity for people to have a personal note on the passing of Claire Williams. So that's that opportunity now. I guess the person with the closest council association or councillors association is Claire. And I know that I knew Claire, but I didn't know her well. And I knew the work that she'd done through the work that our Claire has been talking about. So yeah, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Peter. I wasn't quite prepared for this today. And my piece of paper with the bullet points on is back at home because I thought I might need them another day. Look, yes, I just really do want to extend my sympathy to the Williams family, whole whānau that's out there at Ngāi It's a very sad time for them all. Now, I certainly met Claire for the first time in 2010. She was an inaugural Ngāi Tahuhi representative on the Waimakariri Water Zone Committee, and Councillor Edge was also on it at that time. Yeah. And certainly the knowledge and the understanding that Claire was able to impart on the community members and other members of that committee around Ngāi Tahu values per se, Hingakai, and the way we should actually act. So that's a tikanga, as I understand it, was absolutely immense. And I remember thinking, if we can meet half the things that the Ngāi Tahu representatives sit at the table around our zone committees, then we're on a good pathway forward. And I guess for me particularly, and those rural councillors who have sat at this table or been involved in zone committees, it was quite helpful that Ngāi Tahu itself was involved in farming activities. So there was some understanding there around the implications. But I think that just to acknowledge that Claire was involved very much in the early formation of the Canterbury Water Management Strategy and worked certainly across the TA, Selwyn, Piranui, Waimakariri, and of course Christchurch City as well as ourselves. And I understand that she was integral in the formation of the Tuia, our Rapatuia committee as well. So look, she'll be sorely missed, particularly locally in the Kaipoi and Waimakariri area, but just acknowledge for the wider work. And I'm sure from a Ngāi Tahu perspective, she had fingers that went a lot wider than what I've just mentioned. Yeah. Sympathies to the family.
Kia ora, thank you. Yeah, I just want to say I was very fortunate in around about 1995. I met Claire, and certainly my association with Ngāi Tuahuriri through Waimakariri, Environment Canterbury, and Te Kohaka o Tū Haitara. I think Councillor Korako mentioned it earlier when we were discussing this, that it was very, very rare to see Claire without Puana Joan beside her. And they were wonderful people to me personally. They were also very formidable. They were strong in their beliefs for both their values and also for the whānau and runanga. And I certainly, Frankie and Michelle and you know, the family, etc. And, you know, we've all got stories and bits and pieces about it, but I just want to acknowledge that she was very, very good to me, and it will be a big loss. Kia ora.
Thanks, Chair, for putting this on. Yes, as in my condolences too to the whānau, Claire's whānau. Claire was part of the first lot of community representatives, runanga representatives for the Waimakariri Zone Committee, and she was on there for quite a few years while I was there as well. Very passionate about the environment, very concerned about the state of the environment, and wanting us to move in a really good direction. And I remember one thing she, you know, I still remember today, that she was really strong on. She said, dilution is not the solution. And it stuck with me from her very first round of meetings that we had. She was concerned about the expansiveness of the proposed Ngāi Tahu farms at the upper end of the catchment and what effect that might have on the lower Mahingakai values toward the coast. She was on the committee with her daughter, and I can't remember her daughter's name, Cherie, and they often sat together, of course, with Joan as well. Yeah, obviously sadly missed by everyone. That's my impression of Claire.
Well, kia ora tātou. Tuatei tautoko au te mihi kia Auntie Claire, mo Nook, Claire, Grant, koutou mā. Ka aroha ki te whānau Kirimati, o whānau Williams, whānau Jacobs, ki Tuahiwi, Mangamonu, Hoki. Ka aroha koutou. I just wanted to acknowledge a few other things related to ECAN Mihi that I was involved with Claire in, and that's around the Te Waihora Management Board and the Waihora, their inaugural Te Waihora co-governance group. So I was like a little junior member of the Te Waihora Management Board with Auntie Claire, and Auntie Joan, but also others that have passed away, like Uncle Peter Ramsden, Waitai Tikau, and Joe Nuteta, along with Yvette and Tiriana Smith as well. Spent many hours in meetings with Auntie Claire, and like others have said, what a massive loss for us because of her work and her unwavering, support for our mahinga kai, our water quality, and all of those things. So you just want to acknowledge that work that she did. Nook's already mentioned, being the chair of Ngai Tuahuriri. That's no small feat for anybody to do, as she led the hapu and the runanga with her normal strength. Also involved with her a lot around Christchurch City Council matters, wastewater, stormwater. Her and Joan were always pushing hard on getting change there and making things better for our city, in particular our awa o Tākaro o Pāwaho, Pūhara Keke Nui. So, massive amounts of work, not just out in North Canterbury, but also here in Ōtautahi. So just really want to acknowledge her work that she's done, and particularly in relation to us here at ECAM around Te Waihora. So, kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, nei anō te mihi kia koe te taunuku, nau I tuku mihi ki aia, e te mara I kura, e Claire, tēnei ata no reira tēnā. Ai te whānau Jacobs me te whānau Williams, kei ronga te kapo pauri, kei ronga rātau I tēnei wā, wei atu tēnei mara I kura, te tei kai toa, he toa wahine mo te taiao, mo ngā awa katoa, engari ko te awa rakahuri, I noho ane te taha, ko ia te tei Tiaki Manaki, tērā taha o te takiwā o Ngai Tuahuriri, anō reira I te whaia, moi, hoki mai, tira whakatā. Just acknowledging Claire, similar to Craig, she was part of the team that helped set up Maha Nui Kura Tile, and Tūtaunuku was there as well when we kind of had the initial board of Maha Nui Kura Tile, and just her passion for the tile. But mine goes back to the early 2000s when, similar to Craig, just sitting on a board with Tiriana, Mandy, Joan and Claire. How much fun it was, especially when I was the chair. And sometimes I had to tell Claire and Joan to be quiet, which was quite hard to do. And and Greg would know about that. But just her passion really just for the awa and looking after mahinga kai, and what was handed down from her tipuna, and how she passed it on to her whānau and Cherie, and especially around whitebait season, he always knew when it was on, and if anyone came on the rakahuri on the south side, they would soon learn about waka waka and whakapapa. So to the whānau Williams, Jacobs, mihi atu kia ora. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Look, do you want to round out, or you happy? Look, this is a bit unusual to do it in a transport meeting, I must admit, but I just wanted to use the opportunity while the stuff's in front of us, and tomorrow we go out there to pay our respects to Hiwi at 3:00 as a council, and I think the enormous amount of respect that this woman has needs to be acknowledged, and as soon as possible, and we may have another opportunity. We'll take another opportunity in our council meeting to go through the same process when we have more people in here. But this is really tough times for whānau. loss of such a strong leader and a strong person in your community is always there's a big hole, and it takes a while to get over that, and we understand that. And he's coming hard on the heels of, the last 10 days has been a bit of sorrow amongst our people, especially amongst the Runanga. She was known for her strong mahi, strong leadership, and may she rest in peace. So we'll record this hopefully in some minutes, and we can possibly note those minutes, some of what's been said in those minutes at the next council meeting, because it's probably more appropriate. So there we are. We extend the sympathy to there's no I. Well done, clear with an I. So it doesn't seem a massive tribute, but at least it's a recognition, and we can have some more recognition in a minute. So I'll ask you to move that, Claire, and there was seconder. Look, have you second that? Look, yeah, have you second that? So got a mover and a seconder. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, that's carried. Well done, thank you. What we'll do now is we're going into public excluded, but then we'll move ourselves into public excluded now, and then we'll take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back at 10 to 12. So could I have a mover to take us into second? Thank you, Craig, and a seconder. Thank you, Yayan. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, that's carried. We'll adjourn public excluded until 10 to 12. Thank you. We're now back, being recorded. We've returned to the open meeting. The recording has started. Just the final bit of administration. The next Transport and Development Equality Committee meeting will be held on Wednesday, the 9th of August at 2023 at 10:30. I now declare this meeting closed. Councillor Edge.
Your Honour, Chair. Anuhia, Kitu Uru, Tapanui, Otane, Kia Watia, Kia Mama, Tinako, Ti Tinanana, Ti Wairua, Iti Ara Takata, Koia, Rai Rongu, Paka Iria, Ki Runga, Tina, Huia Takia.